when rain falls is part of a cycle that's essential to all life on Earth. Every phase of this cycle plays a role in keeping the planet beautiful and vibrant. Water makes its way back into the atmosphere via many different routes. Through rivers, from the leaves of plants, and even through the human body. And what keeps all these processes turning are wetlands. There are many types of wetland. Inland wetlands, coastal wetlands, and human-made wetlands. Wetlands are extremely important for humans. They are hugely diverse ecosystems, providing natural riches like food, timber, and medicines. Nearly 3 billion people are dependent on groundwater for drinking, and agriculture relies on wetland freshwater for irrigation. Wetlands are nature's way of purifying water. They also play a hugely important role in the regulation of climate change by storing carbon. Coral reefs, mangroves, tidal flats and other coastal wetlands provide a buffer between the land and the sea, preventing flooding and erosion. Despite all of these benefits, wetlands are often thought to be of low value, and half of the world's wetlands have already been destroyed. The consequences of further destruction are flooding, drought, disease and pollution, and climate change. And ultimately mass starvation and unprecedented species loss. But there is hope. The Ramsar Convention protects wetlands by helping people work together to manage these most precious of resources. Work is focused on wise use of water, building a network of wetlands of international importance, and international cooperation. From local projects to global policymaking, Ramsar aims to get the world acting as one before it's too late. We all depend on water. Each of us can make a difference. We all have a responsibility in protecting wetlands.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second session of the Learning Event series on restoring wetlands through circular economy in celebration of Earth Day 2021. Earth Day was observed last week, actually last April 22, with the theme, Restore Our Earth. My name is Amy Lecciones. I am the Vice President and Executive Director of the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, and I will be your host for today's event. Before we proceed to the formal program, allow me first to thank and acknowledge our partners and sponsors who made this event possible. First, we thank the Next Cities Project, the winner of the 2019 Newton Prize, Unilever Philippines, Clean Cities, Blue Oceans, implemented by Tetra Tech in partnership with Green Ants, the Villar SIPAG, and of course the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. The SCPW joins the many scientists, NGOs, business and governments worldwide that are now looking at natural systems, processes, and emerging new technologies to restore the world's ecosystem, including forests, conserve and build soils, improve farming practices, restore wildlife populations, and rid the world's oceans of plastic. This is also in line with the decade of ecosystem restoration which starts this year. To contribute to the conversation on circular economy, SCPW is conducting this three-part learning event that revolves around the circular economy approach to wetland restoration. Circular economy is a model of production and consumption that involves sharing, leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing, and recycling existing materials and products as long as possible. The three-part series will discuss the basics of circular economy and nature-based solutions and provide concrete examples from initiatives focusing on constructed wetlands, which you had on the first session, plastic waste, and sewage management. Today's session focuses on plastic waste management. Many of us know that the world produces about 381 million tons in plastic waste annually, and this is set to double by 2034. 50% of this is single-use plastics, and only 9% has ever been recycled. Today, almost all the plastics around the world end up in waterways and eventually the oceans. The Philippines is among the top three polluters of the oceans, contributing about 1.88 million tons of plastics into oceans annually. This scenario confronts us now, and we hope everyone will work together to initiate and build on initiatives to change products, practices, and behaviors that lead to this problem. So the format for today's session is pretty straightforward. We have a main resource speaker who will discuss the session topic, and four panelists who will contribute further to the discussion, after which we will have an open forum. So to kick off the session, allow me to introduce our main speaker. Our main speaker has over 15 years of experience as a solid waste planner in East Asia and the Pacific. He has worked as consultant for the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and on several solid waste-related projects. He obtained his bachelor's degree in community development and a master's in urban and regional planning at the University of the Philippines in Diliman, and pursued his postgraduate education at the Tohoku University in Sendai, Japan. He is a registered environmental planner and a member of the PIEP and the Solid Waste Association of North America. He is currently the Solid Waste Planner at the Resource and Recovery Division of the Department of Environment in Prince George's County in Largo, Maryland, USA. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome B. Serrona.
Can you hear me okay? Miss Amy, can you hear me?
Yes, you could be heard.
Okay. Thanks for the generous introduction. I'd like to thank the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, especially Miss Amy Lesiones and Professor De Venadera for making me part of this webinar series on Philippine wetlands. I'm also honored to be lined up with our distinguished panelists who are experts and who will be providing depth to our conversation on circular economy uh, this morning. Um, so what I will be going to present today is to provide a frame of plastic waste, the problem of plastic waste, and provide some perspectives on the processes and interventions that are being made to address plastic waste globally and locally. Um, this is the structure of my presentation. I'll be providing some inputs on the state of plastic waste management globally and locally. I will also be touching on the environmental issues associated with the use of plastics. And then I will discuss pathways or methodologies that are being made to achieve the use of sustainable plastics, and also provide some ideas on measures at the local government level to ensure the capture of plastic materials. And lastly, I will be providing some critical path that we should be focusing on to address the problem of plastic waste. So just to provide some information about Prince George's County, um, the county is one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Maryland. It's 499 square miles, and population is close to 1 million residents. Uh, the county is composed of 27 municipalities. We are located northeast of Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. So how is solid waste management in the county? Um, Annual waste generation is 1.8 million tons, and we have a single stream recycling program, which means that all recyclable materials are placed in one bin, like paper, aluminum, glass, and we also have a separate bin for trash, which are residual materials that are not included in the single stream recycling program. And we're also piloting a third bin, the green bin, um, which is for organic and yard waste. We lead Maryland in waste diversion rate at 63%, and our residents and businesses pay an annual solid waste management fee. In particular, households pay an $400 a year, which the county uses to manage solid waste facilities in the county. We have three major facilities. We have a material recovery facility, which processes recyclable materials collected from residential sources. The capacity is about 300 tons per day. So we collect glass, paper, plastic, and metals. We also have an organic compost facility, which is about 250 hectares. This is the largest municipal installation on the East Coast, and we process yard and food waste. We also have a sanitary landfill located within a 1,250-acre area, and we process about 1,200 tons per month. We also have convenience centers for our bulky materials like mattresses and white goods like refrigerators and washing machines. We collect them separately at our landfill and we recycle them. We also collect household hazardous waste, and we have them treated at accredited facilities for hazardous waste. So just to show you the plastic resin identification codes, so our material recovery facility accepts plastic 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. We don't accept styrofoam and LDPE or plastic films, mainly because there is no market for plastic film and also for styrofoam. We have local legislations on banning the use of styrofoam in restaurants, and also we have a straw ban, and which was just implemented this year. So gradually, businesses are starting to shift to the use of paper-based straw or metal, and we continue to encourage our residents to and businesses to shift to eco-friendly cutleries. We also have a green procurement program, which mandates our vendors to provide office supplies with minimum recyclability content. And with our organic composting facility, we require our food vendors to use compostable cutleries for their services to the county. We also require vendors of our recycling and trash bins to make sure that there is recyclability content of the bins that they supply to us. So just to contextualize the situation of plastic waste, in a report made by the World Bank in 2018, it revealed that globally, the generation of plastic waste is about 242 million tons of plastics, or 12% of municipal solid waste. And East Asia and the Pacific is the largest generator of plastic waste. But in terms of waste treatment, globally, recycling is only at 13.5%. In the case of the Philippines, plastic waste generation is about 2.72 million tons. And based on the study made by the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, Filipinos use 65 billion sachet every year and 17.5 billion shopping bags. And recycling rate in the East Asia and the Pacific is only 9%, so lower than the global rate. So the huge number of plastic waste generated impacts on our environment. So in the case of the Philippines, more than 80% of marine debris come from land-based sources. And as you can see here, in a study made by Ocean Conservancy, in the collection system, 74% out of 2.7 million tons that are generated are or they leak into the marine environment. And also in the uncollected system, in the uncollected portion of the waste, about 26% leak into the marine environment. So there's a gap in terms of the collection system, and the main reasons are the availability of poorly located dumps and private hauler companies unloading trucks en route to disposal sites to cut costs. We also have littering and waste piles that are not collected by some local government units. So I got this slide from Dr. Benson, a plastic waste expert based in Japan, which simply shows the environmental issues associated with the use of plastic. So yes, plastic is a very versatile material. It's cheap, it's convenient, But if we look at the life cycle of plastics, uh, so many problems accompany its production. So we have greenhouse gas emission from resource extraction to production, and its use emits hazardous substances. And when plastics are disposed, it creates air pollution from burning, and it impacts on our waterways and oceans because of the macro and microplastics that are uh, degraded from these plastics. And of course, hazardous substances are also produced. Addressing single plastic pollution is requires systemic approach. So we have these main tools that we need to use um, to address plastic pollution. So we have regulatory, information, and voluntary and market-based. On the regulatory side, we have policy statements. So we need to have national policies on banning the use of single plastics or zero waste plans. We also have the imposition of bans like um, avoiding the use of single-use plastics, shopping bags, cutleries, and straws. There's also a need to have trade policies like banning the transshipment of single-use plastics, and also mandated labeling is also important to bridge the information gap between the manufacturer and the consumer. So this is important. And extended producer responsibilities is another dimension under the regulatory side, because we have to involve um, companies in the management of plastic waste. Also, we have eco-design and procurement. On the information and voluntary aspect, we have research, which is a very important element in the way we address plastic waste. We have voluntary labeling. The purpose of voluntary labeling is really to encourage manufacturers to get engaged into the extended producer responsibility, to provide them incentives to be part of the circularity of plastic waste. Also, reporting, awareness raising, and industry volunteer agreements. On the market-based side, um, uh, we can have tax imposition, levy, subsidy, pay as you throw deposit refund schemes. In the US, deposit refund schemes um, have gained traction in key states, including Maryland. So this is an important part of capturing PET bottles from the public. Now, what are the pathways to sustainable plastics? Many companies here in the US have or are slowly embracing sustainable plastics. So because of the legislations and policy frameworks imposed by the state and the local governments, they have shifted the use of eco-friendly bags. So we have from plastic film and styro to bags which are compostable or biodegradable. We also have, we are also in Prince George's County, we're intensifying our campaign to use glass. Because as of now, glass has very little value in the US. There's no market for it. And the best way to optimize its use is to encourage residents to reuse it. So it's not only the packaging that's being given attention to. Some companies have also resorted to changing the way their products, the actual product is made. So we have flossers which are recyclable already. Um, um, we have wipes which are compostable, cotton buds which are organic and biodegradable, and we have sachet which I understand Unilever is doing is to have refilling stations at key malls in Metro Manila. So these are the trends in terms of the pathways to using sustainable plastics. Now, at the local government level, how do we prevent plastics from invading the trash stream? So one way is to reduce recycling contamination at the household or curbside. So the real battle is at the curbside or at the household level because that's where contamination happen. So this means that we have to intensify our education and our education campaign to raise the awareness of the residents, households, on the need to separate recyclable materials from trash. There's also a need to conduct waste sorts at the material recovery facility. And the purpose of the waste sort is to assess the level of contamination so that necessary interventions can be implemented at the neighborhood or residential level. And of course, we need to engage with communities, NGOs, and businesses in innovative collection and recycling scheme. I don't think a recycling program would be successful without the cooperation of the businesses and the NGOs. And of course, it's also important to invest in research and waste infrastructures. In the US, material recovery facilities are slowly investing in technologies like optical sorters to separate plastics because majority of the local governments in the US use single stream recycling programs. So all recyclable materials in one bin, and it's the machines which separate them. So with the optical sorter, plastics can be separated based on plastic resin code. So just to show you one of the interventions that we do to prevent litter from invading our waterways, we use the Bandalong trash trap. This is one of the areas, this is one of the tributaries that where Bandalong trash trap is used. So this floats on water, and what it does is to collect trash and litter. And the county collects it, and we separate the recyclable materials that are captured by this equipment. Now, what are the critical paths that we must achieve a plastic-free environment? We need to prioritize circular economy roadmaps to divert plastic from land and water environments. We need to have alignment with the Sustainable Development Goal number 12, which is on sustainable consumption and production. So national government should be able to have national policies on banning the use of single plastics. I understand that the Philippine Congress has a pending legislation on the use of single-use plastics, and hopefully it will be passed and will become a law. We also need to create alternative and local markets in view of the China ban. As you know, the China ban has impacted on the flow of recyclable markets because they have literally banned all recyclable materials which are contaminated. The US is the #1 exporter of these recyclable materials to China, but China opposed to the materials from the US because contamination is as high as 25%, and what China requires is a recycling contamination of less than 50%. So we need to have alternative local markets, stimulate local markets for local economies to have the ability to process plastic waste. And also we need to avoid being confined to least preferred treatment methods such as incineration and downcycling, because incineration will just produce greenhouse gas emission, which is contrary to the concept of a circular economy. The key challenges here is that in the case of developing economies like the Philippines, how do we integrate the informal waste sector in, for example, systems like the extended producer responsibility, because that's where the circular economy is headed to. How do we involve them, considering the high informality of the waste sector in the Philippines? And the second question is, how do we make sure that, because there's a high demand for uh, plastic materials based on biosources, how do we make sure that the feedstock demand for bio-based plastic materials would not compete with food security and would not encroach into wetlands, in terms of um, um, changing the land use patterns from for just for the production of plants as raw materials for plastic waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kevin, for that very informative presentation. We will bring back Dr. Kevin during the open forum. In the meantime, to further enhance our learnings today, we have four panelists who will share their contribution or what they're doing to the sound management of plastics, and also to share some calls to action. So let me introduce the four panelists. The first panelist is the Community Relations and Sustainability Manager of Unilever Philippines, Ms. Lavin Gonzaga. We also have the Research and Development Manager of Villar SIPAG, Engineer Joshua T. Ulo, the Project Lead for the Community EcoHub Integrated Waste Management Solutions, Mr. Paul Puthenpurical, and the Chief Environmental Specialist from DENR, Mr. Albert Magalang. So let me call on the first panelist from Unilever Philippines, our partner, Ms. Lavin Gonzaga.
Hi, good morning, Miss Amy, and to my fellow panelists and speaker. Okay. Okay, I'll probably start. So I just compressed the Unilever Zero Waste to Nature program in just one slide. So in Unilever, how we do our program is not just on just the collection side, but probably what most people do not know is that we are after 6 Cs. So marami pong behind the scenes yung Unilever in terms of a zero waste to nature program. But first and foremost, Unilever has been a partner of SCPW, no, for decades already. I've been with the company for 10 years, and SCPW has been one of the established NGO partners, particularly on the environment. So even prior to the commitment set by Unilever in 2017, we have been doing a lot of things already. So nung nag-commit ang Unilever globally, that we would collect more than what we sell, when we committed that we would move to more recyclable packaging, when we committed that we would really cut our use of virgin plastic, hindi na siya naging mahirap because we have partners like SCPW. So, moving forward, what we do is that we do the 6 C. So, first C is consumer. So, we would like to understand consumer insights. So when we actually do a program, similar to when we launch a brand, what we normally do is to know our consumers first. So example, madalas po may lumalapit sa amin na LGUs wanting to partner on certain programs. So before we of course roll out our program, kasi hindi naman siya one size fits all type of program eh. We have a standard program, let's say our Mrs. Walastic program has method called collect kilo kita. It's true for all. But in terms of how we would implement the program, it depends on the consumer behavior. Some LGUs, some municipalities or cities would probably have a more advanced system. Yan yung may waste segregation sila implement. They have MRFs. But some cities and municipalities, surprisingly, still don't have, even if meron tayong batas mandating them to do so. So that's how we think of the consumer side. We also would like to learn more about what would motivate them to join the program and what would encourage them basically to join our cause. Second, C is basically on composition. Ito po yung behind the scenes, no? This effort is research and development group. So we are after better, less
Okay.
yeah.
We
Po na problem. Miss Ami and the team,
yes, we can hear you, Lavin.
hello?
Yes, Lavin, we can hear you.
Okay, clear po. Sige. So, po ata. But just to continue, on composition, so we are after better, less, and no plastic. So, no plastics, ito po yung nabalitaan yung refillery system that Unilever has piloted in several consumers. Yun pong better and less plastics that in terms of using recyclable packaging or kung pwede pong may iwasang plastic or bawasang plastic or nipisan yung packaging, so much the better. On collection, ito po yung pinakaalam ng mga tao because this is the most consumer-centric effort of Unilever. Yung Mrs. Walastic program, which is our sachet recovery and education program. In most of the areas in Calabar Zone, it's in partnership with SCPW. And we are after basically educating the consumers, putting value in terms of para po kolektahin nila. If you go to junk shops, di ba, hindi po siya kinokolekta. So we intend to, para po makolekta siya, we put value into it. And then it's being turned into more. And then collection aside from partnering with, we also so we're in partnership with Linis Ganda, the largest junk shop network in the Philippines, so that we can work with informal waste sectors and eco in order for us to be able to also put that into the system. Kasi may sistema na po sila, junk shop system. So we would just like to add sachets into it. And then next po is basically conversion. As much as possible, Unilever like to convert our materials and make it circular. So currently po, yun po collection program, it's not just basically to collect or offset what we produce in the market, but it's also important for us to be able to with a more sustainable way um, of putting programs para po later on, if more technology for our becomes available, ready na po model. Operation. So obviously po, with NGUs, sabi nga po ng speaker, we would be able, the success if meron po siya different sectors working together. Because honestly po, yung waste management system po is not just only a problem of course, the consumers, but also of the LGUs, the businesses, and of course, the NGO sector. And then last po namin is on communication. So, since ang Unilever po basically ang marketing company because we market certain products. So,
I think Lavin was cut off again. So, okay, so I think Lavin is having problems with her connection. In the meantime, we can just bring her back later. Can we bring in the next panelist? Is that okay? Can we bring in Engineer Joshua Ulo from the Villar SIPAG to give his contribution to the discussion?
okay po. Just to continue.
Lavin is here. Okay.
So, and my last point would be on communication. So, we would want, of course, to citizen by using reach to consumers in order for us po to be have our message across regarding po
Okay, so are we okay, Lavin? All right. So let me again call on the R&D manager from Villar SIPAG, Engineer Joshua Ulo, to share his PowerPoint. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning to all po. Okay, so can we start? Okay, I'll start. Good morning to all. In behalf of Villar SIPAG Foundation, I would like to express our gratitude to SCPW for inviting us to this webinar. It is truly a privilege to speak before men and women who make a huge difference to our environment, our quality of life, and our country's future. Thank you for being good stewards of the environment, responsible in preserving and protecting our resources for ourselves and for the future generation. When I learned that we will share our experience on plastic recycling today, I was personally and overjoyed. Next slide, please. Let me share a story. Last month, I came across a new subject matter thanks to my daughter's school assignment. It is called the estuary. It was my first time to hear and learn a place considered as one of the most important ecosystems in the world. Estuary is a wetland. When you mix the fresh water of the river with the salt water of the sea, something wonderful happens. As if by magic, a life-supporting habitat is created for hundreds of species of fish, birds, and mammals. This is distinct from all other places on Earth. In fact, it's irreplaceable. For you see, estuaries are the most productive ecosystems on Earth, containing more life per square inch than the richest farmland or deepest forest. Estuaries are also known as the nurseries of the sea, as their sheltered waters are perfect for spawning. Thousands of marine animals depend on estuaries at some point in their life. Next slide, please. Upon learning about estuaries and wetlands, the more I came to love waste plastic management and recycling. But we need to do more. How many of us here are more familiar with the view on the right side picture today rather than on the left? We should prevent plastic waste from reaching our most important ecosystems at all costs. Let us make this our advocacy, similar to the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands. Senator Villar sounded the alarm on the country's worsening problem on plastic waste, citing a study from the University of Georgia. The Philippines is the top 3 largest producer of plastic waste leaking into the ocean, next to China and Indonesia. Last year, she authored Senate Bill number 1331, or the Extended Producers Responsibility Act of 2020, which seeks to institutionalize the practice of EPR in waste management. It also amends the 20-year-old Republic Act 9003 of the Ecological Social Waste Management Act. This measure makes sure that the responsibility of the entire life cycle of plastic products rests on the manufacturers. It will mandate manufacturers to recover plastic waste from their products as a mechanism towards achieving an efficient solid waste management, a sample of circular economy approach. Senator Villar also authored Senate Bill 333, or the Single-Use Plastic Product Regulation Act, which seeks to regulate the manufacturing, importation, and single use of plastic products. According to Senator Villar, we should encourage Filipinos to be responsible stewards of the environment. There should be a shared responsibility among us when it comes to waste management. There is no exemption because we all generate waste. Next slide, please. Let me go through the contents of my presentation today. First, we look at the finished product, its features and design details. Then we discuss briefly about the simple process of converting waste plastic into chairs. We will also share some recycling costs, which may serve as rule of thumb in duplicating such a facility. Next, please. This is our finished product. Normally, waste plastics are recycled into plastic pellets, which need one more process to convert into a finished product. Villar SIPAG Foundation decided to make school chairs directly from waste to simplify the recycling process. Given the shortage for school chairs, it became clear that we should produce this product to solve various problems at the same time. Quoting Senator Villar, in turning plastic waste into useful furniture like school chairs, we are not only reducing the amount of plastic garbage, we are also able to provide livelihood sources to the poor. All chairs are 100% made from recycled plastic. Each chair needs at least 20 to 25 kilograms of plastic waste per chair. One recycling facility can make 40 chairs per shift out of the 1,000 kilograms of plastic waste. Next, please. This is how we assemble the plastic chair. Next, please. Let us now look into the entire recycling process. Plastic garbage are collected and sorted by the municipality government of Las Piñas. Correct type of plastic is delivered twice a week. It is good to note that the municipality of Las Piñas has one of the best garbage collection in the country. This was done by investing on adequate and efficient garbage collection equipments, and strict waste management implementation. We only use soft plastics, also known as PE or LDPE, low density polyethylene. In the facility, plastic waste go first to the crusher machine for shredding. Number two, the shredded plastic film goes next to the classifying and washing tub. Wash plastics are dried by the dryer prior to melting. The fourth process is done through the extruder. This is the heart of the facility. Heat and pressure melts the plastic into moldable plastic. On the fifth process, molten plastics are manually placed into the chair component molds, then compressed to a hydraulic press. The molded plastic plus the mold are submerged on the water for cooling. And then on the number 7, once demolded, the parts are assembled and polished manually. The last process will be coating and finishing before delivery to recipient school. Next slide, please. Villar SIPAG has now 3 facilities similar to the one in Las Piñas, another in Iloilo, and another one in Cagayan de Oro. Next, please. These are our current production rates per month. These facilities makes 1,000 plastic chairs a month, equivalent to 20 tons of plastic waste recycled. Since 2013, these facilities has produced more than 50,000 chairs and given freely to more than 1,000 public schools. The foundation has recycled more than 1 million kilograms or 1,000 tons of plastic to date. Next slide, please. Villar SIPAG learned sustainable recycling through actual experience. From these learnings, we want to share to interested organizations. We want to help propagate this solution to others. To put up a facility, one need at least 5 million capital expense. Production cost is also needed. This is 25,000, also known as the recycling cost per ton of plastic waste. With this cost, we can achieve the following benefits. One can recycle 11,000 kilograms of plastic per month on a single shift. We can produce 550 chairs a month, which is equivalent to 875,000 if sold at 1,500 each. Assuming a 1,000 profit per chair, the ROI or return of investment is only 1 year. 11 public schools will be given new chairs each month. Additional 10 job opportunities will be created. And lastly, indirectly, we can also save trees each month due to alternative materials used instead of wood. Next slide, please. Next, please. Okay, here are some sample products aside from school chairs, mainly outdoor furnitures. Next slide, please. But we can also build houses using special sections of finished products that can interlock with each other. We can use it as barriers for our bike lanes and as materials for fences and waste bins and planters. There are hundreds of products to consider. We just need to study which is most useful for the community. Last slide, please. We hope we have contributed to our fight to reduce plastic waste in the country. Let us join hands. Together we can make a difference. It is time we put to action the circular economy approach too, in the Philippines to restore our only home, the earth. Thank you so much. God bless us all.
Thank you, Engineer Joshua. And we hope to visit the Villar SIPAG production line soon. We were there sometime 2 years ago, but we didn't have the opportunity to go inside the facility. But as soon as it is allowed, we will try to visit your facility.
Yes.
Before I call on, thank you very much. Before I call on the next panelist, I would just like to announce that we will be giving out copies of our children's storybook, Islaw ang Pulis Bakawan, to the first 10 persons who will post questions in our chat box, either on FB or on YouTube. Please just indicate your email address or contact details so we will be able to send the storybook to you. Okay, so at this point, I would like to call on the team lead of the Community EcoHub Integrated Waste Management Solutions of Green Ants, Mr. Paul Putenporecal, for his inputs.
Yeah, hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Amy. Can I have my slides up, please? Okay, I'm sorry, I've just turned off the video just to use all the bandwidth. So later during the Q&A, will come online. So my task this morning is to talk about the Community EcoHub, which we are developing in Pasig City. So next slide. Okay, so a little background on green ants and the story behind green ants. So as you can see, that we are trying to do something related to biomimicry, which is the art of nature to perfect intricate biomechanisms and symbiotic existences. So these examples of efficient and effective cases for sustainability can be replaced in human activities as well. So inspired by the hardworking green ants that weave together seamless colonies in a show of strength and resilience, we established Green Ants Builders to foster a new thinking in promoting circular economy. So GA is a platform for a sustainable future, enabling industry, communities, and to partner for climate change adaptation and secure a cleaner environment for the future. So we deliver our services and products through the development of an eco hub, which is basically a hub located within a community, or in today's world, we can call it as a modern materials recovery facility. But unlike a large centralized MRF, this is a small community MRF, which will allow us to be more effective on a community level. Next slide, please. The CCBO project, which is a USAID funded project, has 4 primary objectives, basically to promote, reduce, reuse and recycle practices and strengthen the local and regional markets for recycled plastics. The second objective is to build social and behavior change, or the 3 R's in sustainable solid waste management. Objective 3 is basically to increase capacity and effective governance of solid waste management and recycling systems. And objective 4 is to support international fora, public-private partnerships and multi-stakeholder alliances. The CCBO project is active in the Philippines. There are several grantees. Green Ants is one of the grantees, and this particular initiative, which I will explain today, is a CCBO funded project in Pasig City. Next slide. So here I'd like to show a typical example. I wish I could show some better examples like in developed countries, but our familiar situation is we have laws to segregate and collect and dispose, but unfortunately our segregation record is not as good as we would want it to be. So we are familiar with the situation that prevails currently in the Philippines, as well as many developing countries. The infrastructure to collect and dispose of waste are inadequate, and the costs are beyond the capacity of local governments to comply with the situation. So this leads to short gap methods that in turn leads to wasted resources, pollution, and economic wastage. What we are trying to do is to move away from this familiar situation to a Greenland's EcoHub solution. So how does it change at that point? We have developed a technology-driven shift towards improving the model at the community level, starting from a proper collection and segregation of waste. We engage the community to be part of the value system and try to aim for a 90% avoidance of domestic waste that are going to be disposed at landfills. To do this, obviously, we need to look at an incentivized model. We cannot expect the community to dole out cash for waste management or waste recycling, and nor does the LGU has the capability to handle this task. So what we are looking at is to join hands with the industrial partners, particularly in light of the EPR regulations that are coming in, and to let the EPR incentives be felt throughout the local community level or at the grassroots level. So if you look at the GA EcoHub solution, it basically talks about the collection system. It could be very small systems based on a simple bicycle or a pedal bin, as we call it, or it can be a bit more sophisticated for larger cities like in Metro Manila. We bring the segregated waste to a hub, and there we do additional value from materials, fuels, construction materials, or even composting, or even to look at biogas and fuels in the future. Next slide. So to give you an idea how Green Ants works in the value chain, so we have our typical raw materials of plastic, and then we have the monomers, polymers, and resins that come out of it, and then we make the plastic products. But once it becomes waste, we bring it to Green Ants, we sort them, and we try to look at the value chain from both mechanical recycling, chemical recycling, as well as to give life to new materials and energy production. So all of this, whether it is industry, business, or community, we work with an incentivized model, so where we do plastic neutral or carbon offset schemes to get some economic cash flow out of it. And then we work with communities on a green barter system where we give points to them, and then they can trade these points for cash or for goods and services. So this is a holistic approach in terms of putting more people onto a behavior change pattern. And this project actually highlights how we are going to do that on a single community in Pasig City. Next slide. So a snapshot of the project itself. The project is based in Mangahan, in Barangay Mangahan in Pasig City. The idea is to demonstrate a simple economic feasibility on a small scale level. To do that, obviously, we have to go down to a level of understanding the waste, the behavior of how people dispose their waste, how is it collected, and how is it transported to the value add facilities. After that, we would run a pilot test case for 6 months. And after that, we would be commercializing this at a barangay level and eventually for other barangays or other cities to follow as an example. So in terms of exactly what are we looking at, we would be looking at about 24 tons of plastic on the small barangay to be recycled per year, and then organic compost of 500 tons per year, and development of eco bricks as one of the main product lines which can be used back in the community for construction purposes. So we're looking at producing 300,000 eco bricks per year on this small community project. Next slide. So how the process flow, a little bit of understanding on how we do this. So on the household level, we focus on segregation. We have to train, we have to guide them, we have to monitor, improve, and incentivize. So the key here is to continuously go through this cycle of training, guiding the household level, monitoring, and improving and incentivizing them. So one of the lessons we have learned throughout several community engagements across the country is that the motivation to recycle is still driven by how much incentives are we providing to the household levels. This is not a question of implementation or compliance as per the law, but it is a question of how much motivated the grassroots level people are to basically segregate and dispose of in the right method. The second challenge we have is collection. So even though we can put many different types of bins, if the collection system is not as per the segregated model, and if the collected waste is not brought to the right facility, again we lose our efforts of household segregation. So on the collection level also, we are improving on how to collect. We're training the collectors, guiding them through the process, monitoring and improving it. So one of the things we have included here is an RFID based tracking system at every collection point to look at day-to-day behavior and day-to-day volumes that we are collecting. Composting facility is to make sure that if food waste is segregated, we would get more and more plastic, clean and dry plastic coming to our plastic segregated facility. And lastly, about the plastics itself, we got to keep on innovating and improving. For now, we are focusing on construction material production. But over the long run, we would imagine that as volumes of plastic grow, we would have to diversify into many other plastic products like what we have seen from our previous speaker. Next slide. So in a nutshell, how are these eco bricks made? They're basically plastic sachets. We have a sachet economy in the Philippines. We cannot outright ban plastic sachets, and due to that, the large volumes of plastic sachets which are not accepted by most of the MRF facilities is our primary target. So we have special shredders for these plastic sachets to be shredded, and after they are shredded, the laminates are then mixed with cement directly. We have a low water requirement and a low concrete requirement process to blend this plastic sachets into the cement, dry cement itself. Next slide. And after the cement is mixed with the sachets, we have a special additive mix that allows us to blend and bind these together. And then this is sent to a brick pressing machine, and the newly formed eco bricks are then dried, and we have a final product. So this product has complied with all the Philippine standards for construction materials. In fact, we are almost 30% higher strength requirement. And as you can see, it's like a Lego system. So as you install it, it needs much less concrete, it needs much less labor, and it's a robust system for small households or even informal settlers to start looking at considering something more stable and sturdy for their own requirements. Right now, across the Philippines, we operate 35 EcoHubs, and almost all the EcoHubs produce construction materials, including the bricks as one example, but we have several other construction products that we are now providing in the Philippines. Next slide. So, unfortunately, this project started, at the tail end of COVID, and we do hope we will catch up sooner than later. But the regular on and off community quarantines are not much beneficial for us. But we're trying to keep this timeline going so that at some point we can allow other barangays and other municipalities to come and visit, learn, and maybe replicate this project over time. As I mentioned earlier, we have several other grantees on this project. Green Ants is one of them. We're also very happy to share our experiences, technology, and resources, not just with all our other grantees, but also with other interested parties, including government or private sector. Yeah. I think that's my last slide. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And we are certainly hopeful that the project will be a big success. I am also from Pasig, so we are hoping to have a very successful project here. At this point, I would like to call on Mr. Albert Magalang from the DENR to share his inputs.
Hey, thank you very much, Director Amiliciones of the SCPW, and also a pleasant morning to all our attendees, to all participants in this webinar. So it's I'm so grateful that I've been invited to be one of the panelists kahit napahabol. Hindi naman, joke lang. To talk about the global perspective on how to combat plastic pollution from all sources. So the speakers ahead of me have already mentioned a lot of practices ongoing initiatives that are really linked to the overall global initiative by countries working on a global framework or on agreement, having all those elements which the four speakers have already presented to us, described to us. So I would like to, yes, I mentioned, I have my presentation actually will cover the topics on transboundary problem. Why do we have this? Plastic pollution is not a local problem, but it's transboundary in nature. And later on, I'll be talking about the recommended global response, which is the global framework, and what are the key considerations in crafting this treaty among countries. And lastly, the overarching, what's a framework? What's the content or yung mga elements that will comprise this framework? And later on, some examples on circular economy and sustainable consumption and production. Okay, so on the next slide, just giving you some, a short backgrounder on the state of plastic pollution, which as I've mentioned, is transboundary in nature. It is not a mere management problem in Asia Pacific region or in the Philippines alone, but as we know, oceans are shared. Even yung mangrove areas sa Lalopachea, which is being managed by this Villar SIPAG Foundation, I connected to the other water bodies or wetlands. So marine plastic or the plastic litter, plastic pollution in particular, does not recognize national boundaries and jurisdictions. In fact, such yung litter traverses the oceans up in the shores of other countries. Kaya napapabilang tayo sa second one yung country now may big problem on plastic kasi actually some of these plastics are inanod lang. So ended up in our shores. So more importantly, isa pa, the entire value chain of plastic is global in terms of international trade, source materials, the entire international trade of manufactured products, and even international trade, both legal, kasama na yung illegal dyan, of waste materials. Likewise, for most developing countries like the Philippines, business decision-making of multinational corporations are made or at least heavily influenced by their head offices in developed countries. So on the next slide, how to address marine plastic pollution. So the next slide will tell us some measures which we could work on in order to address marine pollution. Next slide, please. So addressing marine plastic pollution requires a comprehensive approach at the national, regional, and especially at the global level. As extensively discussed in sessions already by the UN Environment Assembly, which the Philippines participates. I'm one of the negotiators, UNEA negotiators. It is really apparent that not one country alone can do it. There should be engagement by all countries, global engagement. Since we have adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, with emphasis on Goal 14, and even at the sessions ng UN Environment Assembly, we found out that many voluntary initiatives have been implemented across the globe and across regions. But still, they have fallen short of bringing us closer to our goal of eliminating plastic pollution, such as marine litter and even microplastics. So therefore, a strong global framework that takes into account the full life cycle approach of products and the shift towards a circular economy is urgently needed to solve this global problem on marine plastic pollution. And on the next slide, let me show you some key considerations that serves as the guidance, serves as guidance for countries. I mean, that should guide the international community in crafting the global agreement. These are, among others, there should be a shared vision that is consistent with the agreement of the UN Environment Assembly member states. And on the reduction targets, there should be a time-bound and measurable, like the measurable targets that we have under the Climate Convention para madali ang monitoring. So there should be a global common standards and regulations, standard monitoring, as I mentioned, standard monitoring and reporting. The support that should be given to developing countries, especially in finance, kung mayroong financial support, even capacity building, technology transfer as well. And there's a need to have a scientific body that will provide scientific and technical guidance to member states who will be participating in this global initiative. And lastly, accountability of plastic waste in high seas. It's about time to careful inflation monitoring and reporting. This can strengthen the measures with regards to accountability of those polluting sources. And then the next slide, talking about the Philippines. So in the next slide please. The Philippines now recognizes the importance of different regional programs and bodies to address marine plastic pollution. In fact, there are several regional organizations, institutions working on marine plastic pollution management, such as the ASEAN, the COBC, the MC, what else? Ano ba ba? The CTI, the Coral Triangle Initiative, among others. Pero we would like to look at a comprehensive, integrated, and multi-tiered approach which is needed to address marine plastic pollution. It is critical nga, sabi nga sa mga discussion among countries, that these various regional programs as well as the national interventions are aligned and should build on each other. Hindi kanya-kanya. I mean, even the regional initiatives are not seeing each other eye to eye. They're not talking actually. Kaya we have several regional initiatives which are parang dependent from each other. So regional governance or coordinating bodies should create synergy man lang among themselves. This could include strengthening communication and coordination among programs, rationalizing plans to avoid duplications and to address gaps, as well as consolidation of information, minimizing redundant and double reporting. So at the national level naman, in fact, there are several draft legislations on this, but we at the national level the Philippines would like to consider the following, among many other measures, like for example, the crafting the national action plan with reduction targets dapat. So, the UN countries would like to call on countries to develop and implement a national action plan that sets out a measurable and time-bound target to reduce plastics pollution with standardized calculation methods for setting baselines and tracking progress, and also a national extended producers responsibility scheme and industry engagement following the polluter pays principle, manufacturers and brand owners accountability for the end life impacts of their products and packaging. These are all critical and an innovative way of engaging industries. So dapat we have to strengthen initiatives already initiated by the private sector. So this would offer them encourage them to participate in this managing plastic pollution through the e-Paris scheme, even the engagement. Yeah, and then which is related to the next measure, which is on incentives to reduce demand and consumption for unnecessary plastics. I think Kevin has also mentioned about levies. So we do agree that levies may be imposed on certain single-use plastics, which should be flowed back to support waste management programs. So incentives may also be provided for innovative, sustainable, and indigenous designs, especially using indigenous local materials which we have started doon sa tatahay ng ating mga PPEs. And then next is the strengthening waste and material management in infrastructure and systems, which is basically this is waste management. So at the local level, countries should be responsible for managing materials and wastes to ensure the use of these materials and to prevent leakage into the environment. And lastly, Levin has emphasized on this, the behavior change, in order to promote a whole of nation approach whereby all sectors contribute to combat plastic pollution, like stakeholders should be informed and educated through formal and informal channels, optimizing the use of information and in communication technology, and also to change behaviors towards transformative business models in the use of source materials, production design, production and design of stick products, the use of less single-use or unnecessary plastics, and the management of waste, recovery of materials back into the circular loop. And on my last two slides will give us some of the initiatives. On the next slide, as regards to sustainable consumption and production. So countries have also agreed on a 10-year framework of programs on sustainable consumption patterns. But the UNEA, the UN Environment Assembly member countries would only focus on 3 measures na muna. So this would, this has something to do with the elaboration of guidelines on plastic use and production in order to inform consumers, like as mentioned kanina by Mr. Paul, that there should be, I think it was Dr. Roy, that there should be eco-labeling to inform consumers, including in standards and labels, and also to incentivize businesses and retailers to sustainable practices and products, and support governments to promote the use of information tools and incentives to foster sustainable consumption and production. These are just the 3 points, but later on, this will initiatives will be expounded to cover other measures. And on the last slide, I think some of the speakers have already mentioned, but we're working closely with the business sector, like the Business for Sustainable Development, conducting BBE, and we have drawn up this kind of circular economy of plastics in the Philippines. May ongoing discussions with stakeholders. So actually circular dapat ito, linear lang ang pagka-present. So we have to start with the removal of from the circulation of unnecessary plastics, which could also be referred as our SUPs or the single-use plastic, and then the use of LCA tool to look at the to support the shift of the delivery modes, and to focus on redesigning in order to ensure recycling and composting of materials, and then waste to value. So basically, this will dramatically reduce the volume of waste in the mainstream, the total waste stream. So that's all, folks. Thank you so much for your attention. Pleasant morning once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Albert, Mr. Albert Magalang from the DENR for the regional and global perspective, and of course, the collective call to action. Nagbibiro tuloy si Albert na ano yun, sabi mo last minute. We are very thankful that Albert accommodated our request at the last minute, because we realized that it was very important to have a perspective at the global and regional level as to what are the initiatives that are being looked at. Thank you very much, Albert. And now at this point, I would like to bring in all the panelists and of course, our main speaker. All the panelists and our main speaker for the open forum. Before we start the open forum, I would just like to remind everyone to please accomplish the feedback form. And for those especially requesting for the certificates, kindly accomplish the feedback form so that we know how to get back to you. All right. So I think we are ready to take questions. Can we throw in the first question, please? Okay, this one. All right. So this one is from Victor Luis. What is the role of the LGU aside from the collection of recyclable plastic wastes? Does the LGU get a share from the income generated from the sale of plastic products? Maybe Engineer Joshua can take the question. At least in your case, sir.
Yes, thank you for the question, ma'am. The LGUs really had a very heavy load for the responsibility in terms of collection of recyclable plastic waste. So the question is, does the LGU get a share from the income? Yes, for our experience, our recycling facility is run by the foundation, and we have no income, and we freely give to schools, public schools who are in need of school chairs. So the next question would be from the questioner we might ask. So how do your recycling facility sustain itself? We have a number of livelihood projects inside that we operate in the Villar SIPAG. So it's livelihood project support another livelihood program. So it's really a self-sustainable recycling facility. Thank you.
Okay. We would just like also to inform those who are asking questions that we will also direct your questions later on to the resource speakers so they may still answer your question via email. Okay, so now the next question is, may we know the progress of the PARMS project? Is this technology going to be launched in the Philippines soon? I think this is for Labin from Miko Alino.
Okay. So actually, the farms project has been inspired by the initiative of Green Ants and Villar SIPAG Foundation. So basically, we're using the same technology. There has been, in terms of, I'm talking about the recycling. So the facility has been operating since 2017, but admittedly just on a small scale because there has been a challenge in terms of getting the connections in cooperation with Meralco on the facility because it's beside the airport. But in terms of the programs on education of several schools in collection, that has been operational ever since. But in terms of the facility itself, that has been a challenge. So we have to rely
Okay.
on our other existing partners for the conversion. But again, the plan is
All right.
full.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you, Labin, for that. The next question is, how strict is the collection in Largo? Do they enforce non-collecting when desegregation, if recyclables are not cleaned or are contaminated? I think this is for Dr. Kevin.
Yes. Collection in Prince George's County is done once a week, and that includes recyclable trash and food waste. So the responsibility of enforcing collection lies with our holders. We delegate the authority to not to collect recyclable materials which are contaminated with, say, plastic film or styro. So what we do is we put a tag on the recycling bin. We don't collect them. We just notify the resident that if they don't remove the contaminants, then collection will not be done. So that's the enforcement part. And what we also do is to provide outreach activities where we communicate with impacted residents that we have this material recovery facility which processes recyclable materials, and film plastic is not it's not acceptable because it tangles the moving machines there, and it impacts on the revenues of the county to earn materials from the sale of this recyclable materials. So yeah, enforcement is with our holders. We contract our holders to do this part, and we also have recycling inspectors, which also do the tagging of recycling bins.
Okay, so thank you for that, Dr. Kevin. In the next question is, in the UK, uncollected trash because of non-compliance can be penalized by the borough council. Is that something we can do in the Philippines? Albert, would you like to respond to that? Do you think that could be done here?
I'm sorry. I'm having
Can you see it?
signal.
Okay. All right. Let's
Can
see.
you repeat again?
Okay. In the United Kingdom, uncollected trash because of non-compliance can be penalized by the borough council. Is that something we can do in the Philippines?
Actually, it's one of the sections ng Ecological Waste Management Act, RA 9003. There are fines and penalties being imposed on yung mga accountable for unmanaged wastes, uncollected wastes. So it's in the law. It's part of the law, RA 9003.
Okay. So move on. We move on to our next question. This is for okay. This is from Janver Barrett. The importance of partnership and alliance building in the efforts of sound management of waste. And who are these key partners for each, and what do they do for each partnership? Who would like to take on the question? Maybe Lavin, you'd like to take it on, and then Engineer Joshua after you.
Yep.
Okay.
Miss Annie, I just medyo garbled lang po, but I catched a question something about the partnership and what
Yes.
each one does.
Yeah. Importance of partnerships and alliance building.
Okay.
And also, who are these key partners and what do they do for the partnership?
Okay. So in Unilever's case, at the very least, we are after a multi-sectoral partnership. So, by the way that our Solid Waste Management Act has been designed, it's really very reliant on LGU. So when we implement a program, it's not enough that Unilever is present, no matter how many resources we pour into the community. But it's important that LGU is supporting the program. So in terms of mandating the constituents and in terms of communicating the program, we rely on the LGU. NGO partners would primarily be in charge of the education component. So, in terms of, we would like, of course, our communities to be able to know the reason behind the program. So, it's the NGO actually duty to do that one. In terms of Unilever, private sector, it's really more on the resources. So, we fund IEC programs. We also fund incentives, of course. And actually come up use our marketing expertise in terms of coming up with educational materials. So in our case, so it actually each partner actually has its own parang duty in the program. So end-to-end siya. And of course, in terms of the technological capabilities, the conversion, that's where partners like Villar SIPAG and would come in program. That's also actually how PARMS manages our partnerships, even on a per company basis and PARMS as a whole.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that, Lavin. And we would like also to hear for a very short input from Engineer Joshua and maybe also Paul after that. Just on the role of the partners and the importance.
Yes, thank you for the question. Partnership is really very important. For Villar SIPAG Foundation, we closely partner with LGUs and the communities around our facility, and also some communities that are having some problems with waste disposals. LGUs does the collection for us, and they also deliver the waste to us. So it's really a key factor to have close relationship with the LGU. And also communities play a great role for the success of our recycling facilities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Paul, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, I think partnership for us is very crucial because we work with a very diverse set of stakeholders here. So in the case of Philippines, we have LGUs that have their own unique initiatives that want to comply with the law, that wants to do something beyond compliance. But of course, taking this message to stakeholders on the community level becomes a challenge, and we also have several industries participating in their own activities, their own CSR or other, SDG based functions that they do. So we do see a lot of activities in the Philippines. Particularly, we have a very robust and active NGO sector, but somehow we have to have this very important partnership when we start a project which is for maybe 3 to 5 year window. we got to align, and I guess people have to spend a lot of time building that strong relationship before we venture into it. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Paul, for that. Can we get in the next question? I think we have time for just two more questions, but don't worry, your questions will be relayed to the speakers, and they will still be responding to your questions via email, and we will still make good on the 10 free books. All right, so the next question is, are plastic receptacles provided by the local government? It continues. In the UK, the government provides the different receptacles with green bins for recycling items, including plastics. This is question for Dr. Kevin Serrona.
So yes, in the case of Largo, Maryland, yes, it's the local government which provides the receptacles, but it's not free. I mentioned earlier in my presentation that each household in Prince George's County pays about $400 US dollars for a solid waste management fee, and it includes fee for the receptacles. So yes, it's not free.
Okay, so for the next question from Judy Divanadera, to Villar SIPAG presenter, do you have data on the household or per person income collection of plastics or whatever part in the project? Thank you.
Hello. Yes. Thank you for this question. So, do you have data on household per person income collection of plastics or whatever part in the project? We do not have the definite data for this, but we have an estimates on the household waste per person in terms of waste disposals, and because these are continuously changing data. So, but we do hope to have this data with the LGUs and some other research groups. This will be very helpful for us to study more on what the best facility to put up and to set up recycling facilities. Getting back on the question a while ago about the partnership, I forgot to mention that we also partner with the government agencies, just like DOST and particularly MIRDC. In our facility, we make use of their expertise. MIRDC makes our molds for the plastic chairs, and they also have some inputs on future designs of our machines. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Joshua, for that. I think we have time for just one last question. From Elsa Luis, how can we institutionalize the collection of laminates? Okay, who would like to take the question? Who would like to volunteer? It's not directed to anybody.
Well, I'll take a crack at it, if okay.
All right. Great, Paul. Go ahead.
So basically, we are caught between the devil and the devil on this question. It's simply because, on one hand, we understand the serious implications of laminates, but on the other hand, we do understand that from a retail perspective, from a perspective of reaching services and goods to last mile consumers in at least 1/3 of the global population, laminates will play a very important role at least in the next decade. So what we are trying to do as far as our initiatives are concerned is to work with corporates to come up with products that can be reused back by the same corporates or to give back to the same community that the laminates come from, right? So we're trying to institutionalize a mechanism whereby there is an accounting process for how much laminates are used by the corporates and how much is being collected back or recycled back based on an annual condition to collect these laminates. So we have some initiatives with about 4 large corporates right now, and I can share this in more details with the persons interested. Yeah. So we're trying our best to institutionalize this, but as I mentioned, this is a devil versus devil problem.
All right, thank you, Paul. I think Albert would like to get a crack at the question also.
No, actually, I was about to, I was requesting for the court to make some additional comments on partnership. Kanina.
Okay.
Actually, really would like to, yung partnership with the business sector, actually, with the private sector, the likes of yung company ni Levine. So we really would like to have an in place transformative business models. So through the national APR scheme, industry engagement, we can have this. We can realize this. In fact, we have to engage the private sector in crafting of the yung mga draft in crafting the draft legislations, which are now being worked on by both houses. Sa Congress, we have the APR law, and then sa Senate naman, there was already the discussion on having a legislation on sustainable consumption and production. So the role of the private sector and the business, particularly the business sector, is so important here because the law is being parang tailor fit for them, just to ensure na there should be an incentives that will be offered to them, and also sinasabi ko, the transformative business models. Thank you po. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. So just one last question before we wrap up. From Yoli Gomez, another source of plastic use today with the pandemic is the plastic shield that everyone uses. How should this be addressed? Come on, guys, you take a crack at it, and I will give you also a free book. Okay, who would like to take the first shot?
I will. Good
All
question. Plastic shield. I think we now have plastic shields which are durable, like the plexiglass type. So rather than produce these cheap plastic shields that are disposable, then how about producing plastic shields? Reduce the disposal of these cheap plastics, right? So they don't get landfill that much. But the way to address this proliferation of plastic shield, this cheap plastic shield, I think it's one way is to think of how Villar Foundation and the EcoHub views upcycling, right? So think of ways in which this plastic shield can be upcycled rather than downcycled. That's how I see it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kevin. So with that, I think we will wrap up our panel discussion. And thank you very much for your very insightful discourse this morning. And at this point, I would like to call on the President of the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands to wrap up and give us his closing remarks. Thank you very much, everyone. May I introduce Mr. Architect Celestino B. Ulet.
Thank you, Ami. And once again, that was indeed a very fruitful session. and the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands would like to thank you all for making this session 2 possible. We have seen various initiatives and strategies on how to manage plastic wastes, and even creative ways to transform it into something more useful and beneficial to the community and the environment. Our speaker, Dr. Kevin Serrona, and our panelists from Unilever Philippines, Villar SIPAG, Green Ants Community EcoHub, and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources have shared their views, efforts, and expertise, as well as proven simple but impactful technologies and approaches for plastic waste management. It's important that we re-examine how we are as manufacturers and consumers alike, and resolve within ourselves and within communities to take action to manage and reduce our use of plastics. The initiative to forge cooperation on this at the global level is also laudable and should be supported. Only such concerted effort from all sectors and all countries can we really hope to restore our Earth. With regard to circular economy approaches, may I say that the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands will seek to promote and pursue this approach with respect to nature-based solutions to restore wetlands. Again, thank you, Dr. Kevin Serrona, our panelists, Miss Lavin Gonzaga of Unilever, Engineer Joshua Ulo of Villar SIPAG, and of course, directly to Senator Villar, who is one of our most ardent supporters. Also, thank you, Paul, my friend and partner, Paul Puten Purical of the Community EcoHub, and thank you, former colleague and friend, Albert Magalang of DENR. And I would like to take this opportunity also to invite you again to the next session of this Circular Economy webinar series. This will be on the topic Circular Nutrient Economy. It will be held next Thursday, May 6, 2021, in the afternoon at 4 to 5:30 p.m. Philippine Standard Time. So please watch out for further announcements from the website of the Society and social media pages for other details. Thank you again. See you on the next session. Stay safe. And again, happy Earth Day. Good morning.
Thank you, everyone. On that note, we would like to thank all our friends and everybody, especially those from our Clear Youth Network who are here today. We haven't seen you for quite some time. Thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you next week. It's going to be Circular Nutrient Economy. It's going to be a very exciting session also. So we would like to invite you to that. Thank you again and have a nice day.